So it seems I'm no longer alone in my assertion that AJ needs to fire Rob McCracken and hire somebody else for the benefit of his development as a fighter. Although some of the people I'm about to mention haven't specifically said that he needs to get rid of McCracken, they have, at least for my interpretation, implied it. One of them being John Fury. He has blamed AJ's corner in general for the tactics they employed against Usyk. Not only their failure to change tactics during the fight, but the tactics they went into the fight with in the first place. And he said this over and over again in various interviews. You've also got Tim Witherspoon, who was former heavyweight champion back in the days and who since has been working with a lot of heavyweights over the years. He says that Rob McCracken needs help. I mean, this is the same thing he said with David Haye back in the days. He said that Adam Booth needed help. Now, some people are going to look at this and say, well, he's angling for a job himself. He wants to get paid. And maybe they're right. But I definitely think that he's seen certain things with regards to Anthony Joshua. Areas of his game that are not improving the way they should be, the way I would personally like to see them improve. And I'm sure Witherspoon too. And the only solution to that is to bring somebody in that can improve those areas of AJ's game and make certain changes. Rob McCracken isn't getting that job done. And he was right, by the way, with regards to what he said of David Haye and how Adam Booth needed assistance. Adam Booth is a good trainer in his own right, but there were certain aspects of David Haye's game that were never fully fleshed out. I always felt that for the longest time. Tim Witherspoon felt the same. So he's not saying that Rob McCracken needs to be fired. He's saying they need to bring somebody else in to help Rob McCracken. Now, they already have people, Angel Fernandez and a few other people. But what I'm saying, and I suspect, I can't put words in the guy's mouth or talk for him, but I suspect that Tim Witherspoon would also agree, maybe privately, that AJ needs a new head coach. If you want to have McCracken there as an advisor or whatever the case may be, if you want to keep him on the payroll out of loyalty, go ahead and do that, is my interpretation of what Witherspoon's saying. But the head coach, the guy with the master plan, needs to be somebody else, not Rob McCracken. Now, Frank Bruno was asked about Anthony Joshua's loss against Alexander Usyk, and he said something very interesting. He said Joshua looks scared. Says he feels sorry for him. Now, this is something I've noticed. It's something which a lot of Anthony Joshua fans have buried their heads in the sand about, quite frankly. And that is that AJ hasn't looked the same in terms of his demeanor, the look in his eyes, and even the way he fights since that first Andy Ruiz fight, right? The loss. He's been gun shy. He's clearly not gotten over the demons of Andy Ruiz 1. I noticed it. Many other people noticed it. But again, a lot of Anthony Joshua fans didn't want to see what was quite obviously there. So he hadn't gotten over the Ruiz fight going into the Pulev fight. Hadn't gotten over it going into the Usyk fight. And now another loss on top has compounded those demons. So Anthony Joshua's issues are not just strategic and technical issues. They're psychological. How is he going to remedy those psychological issues? Now, alongside that, Bruno also says that, when they come onto the corner work and what have you and the strategy, Bruno says you can't start blaming the corner after the fact if you weren't blaming the corner beforehand. Well, I'm one of those people that was saying that Anthony Joshua needs to get rid of Rob McCracken long before AJ ever lost. Not just before the Usyk fight, but before the first Andy Ruiz fight. Long before that, I was saying he needs to get rid of McCracken. And the reason I constantly have to keep saying this in my videos is because I do get new subscribers or people that haven't been following my channel that closely who are going to assume that I'm being reactionary, that I'm only saying he needs to fire McCracken after the fact. No. I've been saying on this channel, going back years, that AJ needs to get rid of McCracken long before AJ ever lost. Okay, just for the record, in case there are new subscribers and new viewers who don't realize this. The videos are still up. All right. So there seems to be a lot more support now, or a lot more people who are of the view that AJ needs to change something in his training setup than there was after the Andy Ruiz fight. You see, I'm all about taking preemptive measures. Don't wait until you suffer a defeat like the Ruiz defeat before you start changing things. Now he suffered 2 defeats. Don't wait until these things happen. You can actually avoid at least some of these defeats by getting with the right trainer in the first place. You wonder whether Lennox Lewis would have lost to Oliver McCall in the first place if he'd been with Manny Stewart from the very beginning. Because the way he was throwing his right hand, the technique he was using to throw his right hand was such that he telegraphed it. And that's how Oliver McCall was able to knock him out. Whereas Manny Stewart got him throwing the right hand in a different way, usually a straight right hand, positioning his body differently, so he wasn't getting caught with those type of shots. He obviously got knocked out by Hasim Ratman, but that really wasn't a technique thing. That was just a complacency thing on Lennox Lewis's part more than anything. Obviously, he was against the ropes and he was standing up straight, and you don't want to be doing that. But the reason he was doing that, the reason he was fighting so sloppily is because he was tired since he hadn't come to South Africa early enough to acclimatize to the altitude. And in the rematch, he went in there with the same trainer and smashed Hasim Ratman to pieces. But anyway, you do wonder, and this was something people said at the time, because Lewis went on to be a great heavyweight and looked very, very good after joining Manny Stewart. And in the boxing media, they were wondering what would Lewis have been like if he was with Manny from the start. Even Lewis has said it himself. And he imagines how greater he could have been, how much greater he could have been if he'd started with Manny Stewart, if he turned pro with him. And he nearly did, by the way. He nearly did turn pro with Manny Stewart. That's something I actually covered in my series about Lennox Lewis and Manny Stewart. So anyway, Anthony Joshua, in my view, and an increasing number of people's view, needs to get rid of Rob McCracken, or at the very least, bring in a new head coach and let Rob McCracken take a back seat. Somebody that is experienced with heavyweights, somebody that understands biomechanics, somebody that can get AJ to be more fluid, to change the way he thinks about boxing, and so on. And names that people have thrown out there, certainly I suggested Shane McGuigan would be somebody he should look at, Ishmael Salas, Tommy Brooks, and even Jonathan Banks and James Ali Bashir, because of the work they did with Vladimir Klitschko. I think it would be a very interesting pairing with Anthony Joshua, because not only does AJ have Klitschko's dimensions, but he's also got a similar mentality. And those guys are used to working with somebody that has that type of mentality. Anyway, you've now got Tyson Fury chiming in, saying that he is willing to train Anthony Joshua. Now, a lot of people are going to look at this and say, is Tyson Fury trolling? Some people are going to say, oh, wow, how nice of Tyson Fury to want to train Anthony Joshua. He's so selfless. He's so patriotic. He cares about his fellow Brit so much. I'm certainly not buying all that nonsense. Tyson Fury, his dad said that he could train Anthony Joshua to beat Alexander Usyk, but he wouldn't because of his loyalty to his son. But his son says that he is willing to train Anthony Joshua to help him out. Now, as some other people have pointed out, Tyson Fury knows that Alexander Usyk is a serious threat to him. So if he can put some kind of barrier between himself and Usyk and get Usyk beat and get those belts back off him, then he will do. That's what some people are saying, and I think they might actually be onto something. So if he does want to help AJ genuinely beat Usyk in the rematch, is because he believes AJ's an easier fight than Usyk. That's why. It's not any kind of patriotism or what have you. It's because Fury is strategic and he's thinking several steps ahead. And the AJ fight, of course, is bigger financially, at least at this stage. If AJ manages to beat Usyk in a rematch, is bigger financially, AJ Fury, than Fury versus Usyk. And all this is assuming that Fury gets past Deontay Wilder in the rematch this weekend. that's no foregone conclusion. But bottom line is, Tyson Fury is once again suggesting that AJ needs a change in his training setup, that the people around him don't quite know how to get the best out of him from a technical point of view, from a biomechanics point of view, from a strategic point of view. And obviously that's something I agree with. Now, Tyson Fury training him and all this other kind of stuff, that's whatever. But the core issue here that Tyson Fury is touching on is that training setup is not good enough. Never mind him having all the best sports science and nutrition and all that kind of business. This is boxing. It's not running track. It's not high jump. It's not weightlifting. All that science stuff is only going to work to a limited extent in a sport like boxing. So much of boxing is about technique, the mind, and strategy, far more so than athleticism. Don't get it twisted. Athleticism can help, but it doesn't trump the things I've already mentioned, in most situations anyway. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below about the increasing number of people who are now questioning Anthony Joshua's training setup. Whether he should bring new people in, let me know in the comments below. Come and join me on Patreon and access my weekly no-holds-barred, censorship-free podcast where we lift the lid on a wide range of controversial topics. It's not mainstream friendly, it's not politically correct, but that's the whole point. We dare to stand as a beacon of reason against an army of insanity. Just head on over to my Patreon page and select the tier called Hatman Hot Topics. You'll gain access to a minimum of 2 hours of exclusive content every single week, including podcasts, videos, interviews, live stream Q&A sessions, as well as my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. Not to mention a vast back catalog of hundreds of hours of previous episodes. You can listen via the Patreon app with the option to download in high quality MP3. We've also got a Discord server where you can come and chat and hang out with myself and other members. There's no contract, no commitment, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.